Good evening, everybody. I'm delighted to be here and to talk to you a little bit about my vision for the office and why I think I would be the best candidate for the office. First of all, everyone says, okay, Pat, why are you running? I tell everybody I am running to restore legitimacy to the criminal justice system. And I say, are you up for the fight? Yeah, I'm up for the fight because legitimacy to me means fairness, integrity, transparency, and equity. And that's what I believe in. That would be my ideology for the office. I started in the office in the 80s. Yeah, I started under Elizabeth Holtzman. I started like most of the people running, you start and you go through the office. I left the office after about 4 years and I went to an office called, we don't have it anymore, but it was the Special Prosecutor's Office. It was the office to investigate the criminal justice system. It's the office that the Howard Beach came out of. It's the office that investigated the 7/7 precinct corruption cases. And it's the office where I reinvestigated the Tawana Brawley case. I left that office, came back to Brooklyn as Bureau Chief of the Narcotics Bureau, and this was in the 90s when Brooklyn was the fifth most violent city in this country, and we were dealing with the onslaught of narcotics. I dealt with that and sort of rose through the ranks and stayed in the office. But during the time, I left in 2002 as the first Assistant District Attorney. I was promoted. And I went to work for Michael Bloomberg as the Human Rights Commissioner for 12 years under him. And then I was 1 year under Mayor de Blasio as Human Rights Commissioner. Left him, went to work for Governor Cuomo as the Deputy Secretary for Civil Rights. And then I left that office, and now I'm in a law firm where I work now, and I do employment litigation. And I say this because, everyone talks about Ken and Ken's vision. But what I know about Ken is, Ken was a civil rights lawyer. And as civil rights lawyers, we view the world differently. I've been both a criminal lawyer and a civil rights lawyer. And when we look at the world as civil rights lawyers, we look at it in terms of human suffering. And so for Ken to focus in on wrongful convictions was almost a natural fit because that's what we do. We try to somehow make that suffering right. And so not only do I believe we have to extend what he's doing, do what we've done in that work, but we've got to prevent that from happening. And how do you prevent that from happening in the office? Well, what you do is you have a prosecutor's integrity bureau. If you go to the Justice Department and you work for the Justice Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, they have what they call an Office of Professional Responsibility. And that office is a place where complaints are filed against not only the prosecutors, but people who work in the Justice Department, in the offices. So it could be, a clerical staff member, anyone. But then they also have groups that go around and make sure that the cases are handled in the same fashion that they would be handled, say, in another jurisdiction. That the cases in New Orleans are handled the same way the cases might be handled. The pleas are the same, that there's some continuity. And we have to make sure that in the zones, and I could talk to you about how I would redo that, but that there's continuity so somebody similarly situated in the blue zone gets treated the same way that somebody similarly situated would get treated in the green zone. And we've got to make sure that we restore the integrity, and the integrity starts with the office. We have to make sure that we constantly audit those cases, not from the top, but from the bottom down. We've got to make sure that when they come through the system, that we're paying attention, that we're working with appeals, so that when people file motions where they claim they've been unjustly convicted, that we're really going to pay attention to those motions and don't just see them as sort of pro forma motions. The other thing I talk about is school to prison pipeline. We've got to go back to doing what we used to do, which was working in the schools, working in elementary schools, mentoring young people. We did a lot of that in the 90s. We had Adopt a School, Legal Lives. I started a young people's court. We had all of these programs that we concentrated on empowering young people through the law, and we know that that works. There are any number of models out there, and we know that that could work here in Brooklyn. My other, my former colleague, mentioned technology. And what I've been talking about is using technology to streamline processes and to also make things more transparent. And when I talk about technology, I'm talking about app technology. In prosecutors' offices in other parts of the world, they actually use Android apps, iPhone apps, to have one for the defendant, one for the victim, one for the community, so that you can go on your phone and find out what's going on with the case. We can use your phone app to notify you and say you got to come to court. We can also use your phone app to pay your fines. and to see what's going on and to have information. So I really believe in that technology. During my years, we weren't, there was a lot going on. One of the things that I am most proud of in the office was in 1999, I started the first program called Com Alert for people who were returning, the first reentry program in this country that was started by a district attorney. And we started it in 1999, and it's still going on to this day. I would like to expand that because that's how we're going to deal with recidivism. If crime is down, then we can start addressing and attacking some of these areas that we know makes crime go back up again. And so we would deal with recidivism, and I would expand that. One of the other things, okay, so I was talking about schools. You got me under 5 minutes, That's hard for a lawyer. One of the other things I'm proud of is we trained a lot of police officers. I had a police training program that I started in the DA's office, and we trained thousands of police officers from Brooklyn North and Brooklyn South, and that was in response to driving while black. I don't know if a lot of you remember that, but instead of just sort of going after police officers and saying, you need to be more sensitive, we went after them and said, you know what, this is not professional conduct, so maybe you need to be retrained on the law and understand what's going on. And it was very successful because that was the approach. So, given the times, we're going to need more collaboration, more innovation, and we're going to have to make sure that we do things right in the office because it's no longer acceptable anymore. So I want to give you time for questions.
Awesome, thanks.
Did I do 5 minutes? And can I just, and I have to say this, and I'm sorry, but Benny, I'm from South Jamaica, okay, Queens. I grew up in South Jamaica. And his vision of the Queens DA's office and my vision, having grown up in South Jamaica, is very, very different. And, I'm a little tired of this. There are no wrongful convictions in Queens and everything, because there's another side to that. And that's all I'm going to say. But it's just a little annoying because this little South Jamaica girl gets pissed off when she hears it every time. I digress. Sorry.
So actually, I think we'd like to hear your position on broken windows as well. And again, if it's a negative position, what policies and procedures would you like to see in its place?
Look, we all study that, and when we came through it, the problem was the problem with all of these is how it's enforced. And, it's one thing if you have broken windows and you enforce it the same way, say you would in Brooklyn Heights, the way you would in Brownsville or something like that. So it's all about enforcement. And, and the principles weren't necessarily bad principles, but again, it's the enforcement, of how, and what it did, like everyone says, is it caused more people to have records and to be involved in the system who just didn't need to be involved with the system. And so, my position on that is there are better ways, and we have to be more creative in how we prevent these things from happening. If we, and training the community and working with the community so that if we see a car that the windows are busted and we know that this might create some problems, then we have to, call sanitation or call whoever. And so we have to spend more time sort of educating the community about how to operate within the city system and within and how to get things done civilly instead of always referring to the criminal justice system to sort of clean it up and pick it up.
Are there any questions from membership for DA candidate? If not, we do have some more.
Oh, okay.
So you spoke a little bit of some of the work that you've done with police in the past.
Mm-hmm.
In the future, as DA, how would you aim to make policing more transparent and accountable for all Brooklyners?
Well, I do think a lot of the technology is good because you'll know who people are and work with them. But I think the training that we did was the only kind done in this city. And other DAs tried to replicate it, but they didn't have the cooperation that we had with Brooklyn North and Brooklyn South at the time. Because the unions were concerned that they thought that it might be a way of attacking their membership, when in fact it wasn't. And I think if you have good relationships and cooperation, the training was great because not only did we bring them into the district attorney's office and have all the supervisors talk to them about the cases and went over their cases. This is why it got dismissed. This is what happened here. And talked about search and seizure and the issues that they really want to hear about. But we also brought the community in to talk to them about different issues. We'd have people come in and talk to them about how I felt when, I was stopped for no reason because I had the BMW, because they were ADAs, and so they came in and they would talk to them about it. So I think that I would try and continue these kinds of training modules so that, you know, it helps the police department, because once you've been out for 5 years in the police department, until you become a detective or go to some other, there's no training going on. You know, you would think that there'd be ongoing sort of like CLE or practicing. There's no training. And so they really enjoyed the training and wanted it. And so I would like to continue that, because I think it was very successful, and it was a way of sort of dealing with problems that in a neutral sort of fashion that, you know, didn't sort of inflame situations, but calmed them down, educated people. And when we monitored the cases like 6 months, a year out, the officers that we were really having the problems with stopped doing it.
Awesome. So I think
Thank
that's
you.
time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.